Hello and welcome. You're watching FII. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Now, today's program is going to be a fascinating one. It's something that has driven a lot of conversation about what next on COVID-19 in India. Well, the second wave is behind us, at least in most parts of the country, that is. But what next? How are we to prepare for the next one? Will there be a third wave? If yes, when? All these answered in this explainer. Will there be another wave of COVID-19? When will it hit us, and are we prepared? Now, to answer all these questions, important to see the trends that have emerged from the first two waves so far. So first, what we have for you is data that we collected from 30 top countries in the world that were hit by COVID-19. And at first, you notice that between one wave and the next one, there is a 5.5 month gap. That is an average, of course. Some countries had 4 months, some had 7 months. But on average, about 5.5 months from the peak of wave 1 to the peak of the next one. So perhaps you should think that waves come and go in about 6 to 7 months' time. Secondly, the key worry is that the second wave, if you see again that graph, is much worse than the previous one. In fact, on an average, about 75% higher in terms of numbers of COVID-19. So, for example, if there are 100,000, the next wave is about 175,000. Having understood that, so that's for 30 big countries across the world, the average figures over there. But let's look at India and how that compares to the world. Now, this graph will actually show you, and we'll superimpose it really with how the world responded and then how India has been showing trends in terms of the first and the second wave. So you can see it shoots up much more than the rest of the world. And you also see the first thing really is that India compared to the rest of the world, while the gap between the two waves is much larger, so it takes much longer for India for the second wave to hit us. But when it does, it really is shooting up way above anybody else in the world. So the question then is, how bad will India's next wave be? Will it depend on how many vaccinations we manage to do by then? Well, if you look at that, we've done an analysis again for you to make you understand how much is really enough. At 9 million vaccines a day, India may not have any further waves. And until then, you keep seeing the wave coming, but the intensity going down. So until we hit that target, we are all set to have yet another wave. So that's the big worry then, right? The next wave could be much worse than the second wave as well. So what we need to look at is how bad and how likely is the next wave going to be in India. And so first, it all looks like, it all depends at this point on the immunization and how much of a population actually has immunity. To that extent, let's look at how many people actually have immunity from the vaccines. That's about 3.4% only of our population, both the doses that is. And then let's look at the people who actually got COVID-19 and thus have antibodies. So that's about 2%. So there might be some overlap over there, but on an average, about 5.4% of India's population only at this point has the immunity cover. So really, what we really need is more and more people get under the vaccination cover, get under the antibody cover. So going by our percentage population under that, with the third wave in India, how soon is it going to hit us? Well, again, let's look at the clues at this point that we are getting at this point globally. To move from the second wave to the third wave, for example, UK took nearly 8 weeks. Italy took 17 weeks. United States took 23 weeks. And their vaccination cover, remember, is way ahead than India. So by that logic, while some people in the country are still debating if there will be a third wave, many experts at this point saying it is not a question of if, but a question of when. According to research now put together by Professor Giridhar Babu and Dr. V. Ravi, in all likelihood, we've got the dates for you. The next wave might be in late November or December of 2021. that puts the wave 3 to arrive in the country just after Diwali and go into New Year's, if those calculations are correct. And if we do not want to repeat what happened last time around in wave 2, it is important that we prepare and tackle the next wave now. To do that, let's try and understand who is most at risk when it comes to wave 3. Well, experts believe that those at risk include people who are not protected by vaccination, people who are not infected yet. Younger age groups said to be more likely at risk as well. This includes children, mind you. But remember, a higher risk of infection does not mean there will be a higher risk of serious illness as well, especially when it comes to children, remember, because they have great immunity. So to avoid a disaster, what should India be doing? Number one, no prizes for really guessing this one. Vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. Vaccination will prevent deaths, it will avoid serious illnesses as well, and there is enough and more data to prove that very thoroughly now. Yes, there is a vaccine shortage in the country at this point, but the vaccine supply is likely to resolve by the end of July. Till then, people with comorbidities, irrespective of age, not just older people, younger people as well who have comorbidities should be prioritized for vaccination. Micro-planning for vaccination should be strengthened by house-to-house visits and preparing the list of all the eligible beneficiaries by the health workers and volunteers as well. Vaccine hesitancy, that needs to be tackled on an urgent basis, especially in the remotest corners of the country. But when talking about vaccination, you just at this point wonder how much of vaccination is really enough. We try to understand that from experts, and they estimate that India should be vaccinating roughly between 9 to 10 million people every day. And we need to do that in the next 3 months itself to try and avoid any further disasters. Next, so that was vaccination. Next, what else is required to prepare for wave 3? Surveillance said to be the key over here. We have to wake up to the disease threats when they are, generally we wake up to it when they are a large outbreak, but it is important to have intervening periods being looked at to the one at a time when actual planning is done. One of the critical aspects of surveillance is sustaining aggressive testing, especially in symptomatic individuals. The other is to closely watch, and this is important, the 7-day moving average of the test positivity rate, the TPR as it is called. The TPR less than 5% indicates the disease is under control. Another important facet of the surveillance should be actually genome sequencing to keep a watch on emergence of those new variants that keep throwing our entire planning off the chart. So very important to keep a tap on that. And last, but perhaps the most inexpensive, but yet the most important way and the most easy way as well to beat the third wave is to maintain our COVID-appropriate behavior. So no more mass gatherings, case isolation, contact tracing, and the all-crucial R factor or the reproductive rate of the virus should remain below or equal to 1. That, if followed, experts believe we have a chance of beating the third wave. All right, all that information that you just saw over there in the explainer has been put together by experts, and 2 of them actually join us on the program. All that information coming from Professor Giridhar Babu and Dr. V. Ravi. Thank you all, both of you, for your time on this program. Dr. Babu, lots of fascinating details out of what you and Dr. Ravi have just pulled out. But to start with, just explain to our viewers, simply as possible really, on how do we define the onset of a wave? For example, when do you say that a wave is now on its way, it's coming?
Thanks, Sonal, for having us on this show. It's a great honor to be with Professor V. Ravi sir, who is a mentor for many epidemiologists all over the world. So to begin with, in terms of how to recognize a wave is in terms of when does the reproductive number goes beyond a particular cutoff point, which is by the local governments. Generally, it can be declared at 1.5 as a major outbreak, and but I would be concerned the moment it goes above 1. because we need to track what happens between 1 and 1.5. Beyond 1.5, it's simply unimaginable in terms of the number of cases one country can have. So that's one indicator. The second indicator is to look at the growth rate of cases, Sonal. So if each week by week, the growth rate is increasing, that will give you early signals in terms of even the effective reproduction number can change in the nearest future. So the test positivity actually comes in much later in terms of having already an outbreak and how do you contain the outbreak afterwards. So the key to ensure both the effective reproduction number and also the growth rate in cases is all right, optimal, is the way we detect cases and the way we test. So as long as we strengthen, as you clearly stated out in the earlier part, that as long as we have strong surveillance system and we keep up the testing levels, and instead of reviewing saying that most cases come only from these states, if we start reviewing why are the states not reporting enough cases, why are the regions not reporting enough cases, then we will be very sure that we will not miss out areas of circulation.
Perhaps transparency in the data also key at this point. But let me bring in Dr. Ravi at this point. Dr. Ravi, one of the key learnings from how we saw wave 2 in India come in was that it wasn't across the country at one go. We saw pockets, we saw states emerge, and then we saw hotspots change as well. So looking ahead at wave 3, what are some of the trends that you are overseeing at this point? And again, will it be in pockets in states, or will you see sort of a surgence coming out all over the country? I ask you this also because in urban centers, in cities like Delhi and Mumbai, where we've seen seropositivity shoot up to 50% at times, now some saying that almost 70 to 80% of the people actually got COVID. So if that's the case, are we talking about a more delayed wave, or are we talking about a wave which will impact other parts of the country?
Thanks, Sonal, for having me on the show, and it's a pleasure to be with Professor Giridhar Babu, a dear friend. To answer your question, I always say this: India is not one country in terms of its population. It is 30 countries. And each state is almost equivalent to a country, and within each state there are several districts, which is our basic unit. The second wave has taught us that what was urban centric or restricted to towns and cities now has gone a little more into the periphery in districts and rural areas. So one would expect that the third wave, if it comes, would also be going more into the rural areas. Not that it will not affect cities, mind you, that will still be there. Number two, it's very important that we start looking at data, monitoring it closely, not at a state level. I believe that is gone now. First wave, we did it at national level. Some states like Karnataka did it at state level. I think now every district should have a small group of experts, of a clinician, a public health expert, a microbiologist or virologist, and an administrator who will monitor whatever Professor Babu said, calculating R0 and looking at test positivity rate. And we should be ready for imposing restrictions at the earliest sign of increase in number of cases. Lastly, non-pharmacological interventions like masking, avoiding crowding, maintaining distance, we have to live with it for another year. Of course, you covered vaccination very well.
Another year?
Another year, we'll have to wear masks and maintain distance. Sonal, you don't have to look so surprised. That is reality. Either we get everybody vaccinated tomorrow using a drone and an aerial spray. I wish there was a vaccine like that. Unfortunately, we don't have one. So we have to respect the virus. We have to bow down. It will catch every susceptible individual. There is no way out because it's a novel virus and humanity has not seen it before. So we have to remember that we have a road ahead with many speed breakers or road humps. Whenever there is a small surge, you have to slow down. Otherwise, you'll be thrown off your vehicle. And whatever is absolutely essential for economic activity, we should have those activities. Many things do not, in my opinion, promote economic activity and revenue generation. Events that come under this category are elections, religious congregations.
Have to be avoided.
All I'll stop here.
Right. All right, lots to unpack from what both of you have just said. I think we deserve a commercial break at this point just to go through everything that has just come to us. We'll be back on the other side. Welcome back, in time for our special campaign, Vaccinate India, in partnership with Google, where we're discussing questions that a lot of you often Google and having an expert answer them for you. Now, let's take our question to Dr. Dhameja joining us on the program today. But the first question I want to ask you, Dr. Dhameja, is people often Google this question trying to understand what are the documents that one should be carrying when they go to get their vaccine.
Thank you, Sonal. So obviously, you need to have an appointment, have a slot in the vaccination center, and then carry your Aadhaar card for your identity. So they usually verify your identity, your date of birth. And in addition, if you have any comorbid condition, any illness, you should carry papers with the diagnosis and with the medications which you are having. So these are the things we should always carry when going to the vaccination center for the jab.
All right. And, you know, often, just to follow up to that, Dr. Dhameja, the question is that people, what should they be eating before or after the vaccine? Do you recommend that, since lines are getting really long these days, that people carry like a little bag of food and water with them definitely when they go get their vaccine?
Absolutely. You need to have a good nutritious diet the day before and the day of the vaccination. Whatever medications you are having, in case you have some disease, you should carry those medicines. In case you're having a morning dose, you should have that, except for the blood thinners, which you can have after the vaccination. Otherwise, have a good night's sleep, be positive. The vaccination is very, very important.
Yeah.
It has taken just 300 days from lab to jab. So this is one of the most important scientific achievement of 2020. And it should be respected, and it is the only way to get out of the pandemic.
Right. And, you know, just to wrap up then what you've said, carry your identification card, the one with which you got yourself registered on the CoWIN app, that's a must.
Yes.
Your documentation or the letter or the message that you've got confirming your appointment,
Yes.
and then just carry some water to ensure that you stay well hydrated
Absolutely.
all through the process. Okay, that brings me to the next question then, which is, can I get COVID vaccine without any registration?
So some of the centers do have the walk-in jabs, when you can just go and try to have the jab just in walk-in. But these days, as we see for last couple of weeks, it is always better to have the appointment slot reserved for you. Carry that SMS with you. That is always better, because you don't have to wait for that, and you don't become part of the crowd. So it is safer for you, safer for others, if you are having an appointment and then going for the jab.
Right. And also, just to add to that, I think most of the centers above 45, it is still walk-in, but below 45, you still have to take an appointment on the CoWIN
absolutely.
portal to ensure that you make your way in. So that's an important clarification. Also, I think I have time for one more question, which I can squeeze in, which is, can I choose the COVID-19 vaccine? Often Googled, people often wonder which one to go for. There are 3 vaccines at the moment currently available in the country, Dr. Dhameja, but what do you tell people who are still wondering what to do, which one to choose from, and can they choose?
So this is most common question asked to me, and I always tell them the best COVID-19 vaccine is the first one that is available to you. Do not wait for any specific vaccine coming up on the pipeline. So whatever is available, go for it, have a jab. That's not only for you, that's also important for the others in the community, in your family, and in the society. All vaccines are safe, all are effective, all reduce the risk of your severe illness, hospitalization, and death.
All right. So take the vaccine that is available to you. Not
Yes.
Don't try and pick and choose at this point. And as and when perhaps Dr. Meeta, we go ahead in our vaccination program, so many others in the pipeline at this point. There will be many more coming up. So lots of more choices as well
They
coming
would
up
be
for
okay,
people.
yes, yes. But at the moment, go for whatever is available. Whatever is the first one that is available to you, please go and have the jab. That's the message. And NDTV is doing a wonderful job for the vaccine advocacy. We are all vaccine ambassadors, and this will go a long way to get out of the pandemic. I must compliment NDTV.
Well, thank you, and thank you to all the doctors as well, giving us your very precious time at this moment to try and get the right word across. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Always.